Hi, this is not Joseph Fink. This is not an actual podcast from Night Vale either. This is a fan-made podcast about an imaginary radio show called Good Morning Night Vale Tonight that might use the characters, backgrounds, and themes from Welcome to Night Vale, but given the infinitude of the cosmos, it's entirely possible that any resemblance is entirely coincidental. If you have no idea what Welcome to Night Vale is, head over to Commonplace Books. You are too late to get on the ground floor of the amazing sensation that is sweeping the globe. The best you can hope for is to camouflage yourself and hope that nobody will notice that you are woefully behind the times and thus subject you to soul-crushing ostracism. May I suggest purchasing a t-shirt? Otherwise, I took the background music from the show and some free music from various websites and kinda squished them together. Hope you don't mind me borrowing it. You can have it back when I'm done. Please don't eat me. The coffee break is from a website where they said you can use this music as long as it's not for commercial use. This is clearly not for commercial use. This is a cry for help from a very disturbed mind.
The klaxon began to wail. The klaxon began to wail.
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
The klaxon began to wail.
I'm glad you could join me for the next installment of Good Morning Night Vale Tonight. But first, clarification. There seems to have been a misunderstanding. This is a call-in show, not a culling show. People call in with questions. You do not call in who you want culled. The culling report is right after the farm report. I can see how people might get that mixed up. This has been clarification. A political advertisement from Citizens for a Higher Minimum Wage. Fellow citizens, did you know that in the past 60 years since the space lizards allowed us to have our own country, wage disparity has increased dramatically? The difference in the amount of rage between your average apathetic citizen and the 1% has widened over 70%, despite the fact that inflation has increased the overall amount of rage in our country by 260%. My fellow Americans, too long have the 1% among us possessed all the outrage and indignity. Young people today are disillusioned, simply have given up on any hope of becoming intolerant, tooth-gnashing firebrands of myopic opinions. If we are to have any hope of turning the apathetic children of today into the ranting blowhards of tomorrow, our country needs to raise the federal minimum wage. Our detractors would speak about how raising the minimum wage hurts small businesses, how we need to reduce the minimum wage to maintain competitive with other countries. What they don't want you to hear is their screams as we beat them to death with lead pipes. So join with us and write your puppet government and ask to raise the minimum wage. Think about the children. Think about how lazy they are. All the work that you did to give them a better life, and now they sit around playing on Facebook and Twittering. Support Prop H8R. This has been a political advertisement. Update on this morning's book drive. The book drive this evening took a nasty turn when a copy of Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra got all Ubermensch and challenged the herd alpha for control. The resulting stampede tore through the Tarantula district, causing widespread panic. A local arachnid was quoted as saying, "Look, for you endoskeletal creatures, they're just books. But for us, books are a natural predator. We get squished by them all the time." This was a nightmare made manifest. The head of the Tarantula District's Better Business Bureau, Witsy Bitsy, was quoted as saying, "We've been having drug gangs ruling the neighborhood, and the police have never even bothered to come into town. I'm not saying that it's right that a police officer found a tarantula hiding in his boot waiting to bite him, but you have to understand that the youth of today are notably upset about how the police have been treating the situation here. And now, a book stampede? I mean, where's the Red Cross? Where's the emergency aid? This is our Katrina, he exclaimed while his hairy forelegs twitched spasmodically. When asked about how the surviving spiders were holding up, Witsy grew angry. Hey, you can't use that word. That's our word. You don't get to use that word. Then he bit intern Phil on the neck, injecting him with venom for pre-digestion. This caused Phil's face to swell up right before he fell over paralyzed. Witsy Bitsy then turned and scuttled away, leaving intern Phil's helpless body to the tender mercies of the blistering sun and the thousands of freshly hatched young that were pouring out of the sewers in search of victims to drain of all bodily fluids. To the family of intern Phil, don't worry about it. I'm sure he'll be fine. And now a word from our sponsor. A child at school. He is different. The others wait until the watchers are distracted. They surround him. They prey upon his fears. They melt away with the return of the watchers. He speaks of his tormentors. The watchers turn a blind eye. He is punished. He suffers in silence. He weeps into his pillow. He talks to his mirror. He carries with him emptiness. He does not know peace. He never forms a meaningful connection. He revels in the suffering of others. It is the only sense of control he will ever know until now. Pinkberry. Food fills void. This has been a word from our sponsor. Listeners, I have I'm sorry. I need a minute. Tonight at the Night Vale Orphanage, Shogoth, whose parents were devoured by the great uncoiling of the universe during the war with the Smiling God, hung herself. We all know that Shogoths are capable of surviving almost any sort of wound, but apparently they cannot regenerate a broken heart. Now, as we all know of the City Council's restriction on death, I myself, due to the fact that I wasted so much time hiding in the basement of the radio station, am way behind on death credits. However, Jennifer managed an illegal suicide. For violating the town's ordinance, the child will be charged, of course, but given the circumstances and the violator's age, the sheriff's secret police assure me that they will not only prescribe juvenile detention, but she will receive counseling. However, all attempts to retrieve the child by blood sacrifice have failed. The secret police have informed us, and I quote, the criminal known as Jennifer steadfastly and quite rudely remains dead. The town secret police have not given up on the search. Town shamans are scouring the local astral plane as we speak, but it has been well over 12 hours since she... chances of successfully finding Jennifer are decreasing with every passing moment. So, dear listener, if you have any knowledge about Jennifer, contact the police's, quote, anonymous, unquote, tip line, or this station as soon as possible. And if you have any means of contacting her, please relay to her the message that she will not be punished. Tell her that what she needs is help, and I will make sure that she gets it. More on this as it develops. And now, letters from the listeners. Hello, Night Vale. I'm from a vague yet threatening government agency, not to be confused with the vague yet menacing government agency. I'm afraid we have a wide number of undercover agents in your town, and due to new federal mandates, they all have to come in for training. However, if they all did that, their covers would be blown, they'd all be in danger, and there'd be a whole lot of paperwork to fill out. So, would you do me a favor and broadcast their training over the radio? Thanks in advance, Agent R. Tactic. Well, considering the rather sizable donation made to the radio station from your front company, Tomato Co., spelled with an E, not to be confused with Tomato Co., spelled without an E, how could I refuse? This training covers hazardous materials and OSHA requirements. Employee poster notifications are required at all work locations, including undercover operations. However, for interests of security, you may put the poster on a wall that spins around when you flip a secret switch, as long as it makes a whoosh sound, as that would be rather cool. Each and every employee must have a hazardous chemical exposure file. Each and every file will read, "Feelin' fine." Safety data files are required for all product and hazard IDs that can be accessed by employees on request. These should include the following: suggested first aid measures in case of exposure, suggested conditions when mercy killing is appropriate, suggested measures for handling an accidental release, suggested measures for handling a, quote, accidental, unquote, release, what organs the chemicals target, as well as whether or not you should keep any spare organs on hand, a list of all physical side effects like toxicology, possible mutagenesis effects, and disposable considerations. Not to be confused with disposal considerations. What is a toxic substance? It could be anything. A little known fact, even too much water can kill a man. But you already knew that, didn't you? A list of possible hazardous materials are paint, paint thinner, rubber cement, wheat byproducts, Vimby, and copy toner. Check to see if any of these substances are at your work location. Toxins come in many different forms. For example, solids, liquids, gases, plasma, undulating flesh, and fragments of space-time that were never meant to touch. Remember, good hygiene will save you. Don't eat or smoke around hazardous materials. Wash your hands. Mold frequently. How do hazardous materials enter the body? By mouth. Absorb through the skin. Absorbing skin. Inhalation. Injection. Teleportation. Mimetic agent. And your eyes. Any of them. Exposure limits are to be determined by your pay grade. Ways to reduce your exposure. Ventilation. Proper environmental storage conditions. Doing all the real work in a secret off-site location that the OSHA inspectors do not need to hear about. And not being a snitch. Finally, a list of common hazardous substance warning signs. All warning signs are diamond-shaped. The sign has a red wavy line, that means fire hazard. If the sign has 3 red wavy lines, that means taken. If the sign has 3 vertical green wavy lines, that means tentacles. If the sign has a gray mutating blob, that means the substance has been shown to cause cancer in rocks. If the sign has a man clawing out his eyes, that means human resources. If the man has a red wavy line over a person, that means ginger. If the sign has alternating green and red lines, that means Christmas and tentacle. If the sign has 3 triangles circling a dot, that means radiation. If the same symbol appears imposed on a 6-fingered hand. That still means radiation, but it's the cool kind. If you stare at the sign long enough and it eventually reveals itself as a slowly rotating hypercube, that means omnidimensional object, handle with tongs. If it's a white circle with a halo of red squiggles, that means minty. If the sign is just a question mark, it's a mystery. If the sign depicts a man on his hands and knees in defeat, it means existential crisis. This cannot be averted, such as life cannot be averted. Are you actually here right now, looking at this sign, gazing slack-jawed and misty-eyed at the rusted-over yellow and black of this slate of metal? Or are you, perhaps, in a coma, and have somehow projected your consciousness onto another plane? Are you living in another dimension, never to see your family or loved ones again? This has been Letters from the Listeners. And now an update on Wheatgate. To refresh your memory, you may have heard about the buyout of Wheatco yesterday during the morning broadcast by this town's most popular radio personality, Cecil. Wheatco was bought out by a company called Definitely Not Strex Synergists, Inc. The announcement was made to a very suspicious group of reporters by a trio of individuals who wore dark sunglasses and spoke while holding a hand over their mouths at all times. They released this muffled statement. "Oh, yes." Then, twirling their capes and pulling their top hats low, they avoided any questions by fleeing into the building of Wheatco, closing the factory gate behind them. A gate that, I might add, had the symbol of Strex Synergists Inc. freshly painted on it, except that the symbol had a mustache. Well, it appears that around 1 a.m. tonight, a mob of citizens noticed that the Definitely Not Strex Synergists Inc. freshly purchased factory had mysteriously caught fire. Intern Phil questioned a member of the mob who said, "I have no idea what happened. We were just having a nighttime jog. We're a nighttime jogging club. And we brought these torches so we could see where we were jogging. Well, somehow the building caught fire. Who knows how these things happen?" When asked why they were all carrying empty gas cans, they replied, "Oh, we ran into somebody who needed gas." And then the spokesperson glared at intern Phil through the twin slits in his purple hood until the intern scurried away to talk to the fire crews. The fire crews responded by saying, "Yep, that's a fire all right." When asked why they weren't trying to put out the fire chief explained, "Do you know how you're not supposed to go swimming for at least a half hour after you eat?" Then he waved a donut in the intern's face. "Same basic concept," he continued. All further inquiries were met with approximately 5,000 foot-pounds of high-pressure water. Later, after the fire finally died down, the factory was discovered to be empty. The new owner, Mr. Smith, was contacted by a very soggy intern, Phil. The new owner was no longer wearing his ominous Strex Corp-style business suit, black top hat, and dramatic cape, but instead was wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt, shorts, and zinc cream on his nose while carrying a briefcase literally bulging with money. I mean, you could just see the $100 bills hanging out of it. When asked why the factory was empty, Mr. Smith said, "Oh, it burned down? Well, that's a pity. I'm completely heartbroken. My dream is dead. At least this pile of insurance money will ease my pain in this, my time of grief." At which point he held up his hand and caught hold of a roll platter that swung down from a passing black helicopter. Then both flew up into the night sky and disappeared from sight. This has been an update on Wheatgate. A development in the search for the orphan Jennifer. The secret police Shaman Division believed they had tracked down the orphan Jennifer to Night Vale's booby-trapped Road Motel. The secret police SWAT team moved into position and broke into room number 4, hoping to catch her by surprise. Instead, the secret police had picked up encoded transmissions and were inadvertently interrupting a summit meeting between a vague yet menacing government agency and a vague yet threatening government agency. Apparently, there's been some sort of interdepartmental territorial dispute, and this summit between high-ranking government officials was supposed to settle things once and for all. However, when the secret police burst in, both sides thought they had been betrayed, and in the resulting gunfight, both sides decided to take a nap. Very red, wet naps. The fallout of this will have grave repercussions. The most obvious is that I'm talking about it. Normally, I wouldn't be able to say anything about anything like this ever, but right now it's clear that there's nobody back there in the censors room. It appears only the automatic keyword search filter is actually working. As long as I don't say words like going to take a coffee break. And so another day comes to a close. The sky starts to brighten in the south with the rising sun, which of course fills me with the primordial sense of dread that all albinos feel when exposed to sunlight. Trust me, you'd be scared too if you burst into flames whenever the sun came up. But I digress. As the night ends, so does your day begin. I will leave you with this final thought. We as a culture romanticize the unstoppable man, the man who can be knocked down only to rise up again, the survivor who wins by simply refusing to die. The reality of such a man is not so cinematic. If life piles enough upon the man, he will break, either his spirit or his mind. A man that goes insane when he gets to that point is just surviving to survive. He is no longer living. He is only existing. If you get good enough to endure the trials and tribulation of existence, it becomes a primordial need manifested as psychosis. Yes, such a man could claw his way out of his own grave, but he cannot stop for even the most minor of injuries. He can never rest. If he stops to heal, he he will have to feel. Feeling is death to a man like that. He must always move forward. No matter how hard you are, when you are knocked down, he must get back up and keep going because of one simple belief. Things will never get any better. This is as good as it gets. But as terrible and horrible as things may actually be, this is not truth. It is only conviction. Eventually, we all need to heal. Can you stop? Can you let it hurt? Because we glorify such men, nobody will notice their pain. Nobody will help them because people try to become as broken as they are. The determinator, the man seeking to become a force of nature, just as strong, just as pitiless. And when your Sisyphean task is finally at an end, in a dark, windowless room you will sit, trapped alone with horrific truths and missing friends. Just something to think about. And as always, have a good morning, Night Vale. The real Night Vale is owned by creator Joseph Fink. You might want to go over to Commonplace Books and check out his stuff and spend some money over there. Music was by Google Play, 1 or 2 tracks by Desperation. Coffee break was Evil Minded Blues from Virginia Liston. And as always, I'm the guy putting this stuff together, Bob. Later.